I'm Joanne, Cary. Welcome back to Embodied Soul Podcast, a multi-dimensional space intended to support you in mastering living, being, and thriving as the embodied soul you are. In this week's episode, I want to talk about moving with the ebb and flow of energies and how it can support you in moving more easily through your life with less frustration, and where you can actually feel like you're bending time because you can get so much more completed with a lot less effort in a lot less time. So if you're ready to join me, pull up a comfy chair, invite in your soul, and be open to receive exactly what you need to live, be, and thrive as the embodied soul you are. So I was reminded this weekend, when I was not moving with the ebb and flow of energies, as to why the guides began teaching this practice to me, and how it has, for the most part, become something that I work quite easily with until I forget. So this weekend I was working on a project and I just wanted to make some forward momentum on it. And I was struggling and I was getting frustrated and I felt like nothing was working. I couldn't pull it together. And they tapped me on the shoulder and reminded me that I was not moving with the ebb and the flow of the energies. And that has a couple of negative impacts. Not only does it mean you're not actually completing what it is that you want, but you're starting to code it with this kind of icky energy of frustration and upset and discontent. And that can coat and be felt by people if it's a creation or an experience that other people will interact with. And so what does moving with the ebb and flow of energies mean? The image that the guides originally gave me was of a surfer waiting on a surfboard. And they don't try to push, right? When the wave is flat, they're not like trying to stand up on the board and surf. No. They are waiting to feel the flow of the energy. And then as the wave begins to build, they feel that momentum and then they begin to paddle. They begin to take that action. And then they're carried really fast all the way through until it begins to ebb. And so if you think of a project or something that you have to do in a very similar way, what happens is that if you're working on it and all of a sudden you start feeling frustrated, all of a sudden you've worked on the last sentence, for 10 minutes or 10 different ways, and you are just aggravated and you feel like you're, again, hitting your head on the wall, feeling frustrated. Those are good signs that you are not moving with the energies. So in my case, I was really trying to push because I have this deadline. I'm working on a collaborative book and I'm writing a chapter and it's going to be due. And there's a part of me that likes to get stuff done in advance so I have time to sort of percolate it. And what the guides reminded me, and this is where we often get a bit of we sort of misconstrue what action means. And I've talked about this in another video around the non-action action. And that's the ebb state. So what the guides were showing me is how the work that I'm doing on this project, that as I allow myself to sit in the ebb state, when there's not action that we might think of, it's not me typing it up, it's not me specifically searching for specific things to include, but it is the actual just being with the idea of it. And your brain gently begins working with different stories. The energies begin weaving. Because remember, anything that we're doing is actually in co-creation with what it is that we're creating. And so in this case, all of the energetics were beginning to build around, how is this story going to weave together? How is it going to work? All of that's happening in the ebb state. And when I realized that I couldn't push this, I can't force this to come out in any other way, I finally decided to ask myself, okay, well, where is the energy moving? Where is it that I could be actually feeling productive, where I can actually be having an easier time flowing with the energies. And I kept on getting this image of the beach. And I'd been ignoring the image all day because the tides were high. And it's like, I don't like to go to the beach when the tide is high because there's like very little beach to walk on. But that is the idea. That's the image that I kept on receiving when I decided to take a step back from working on this project. And so off to the beach, I decide to go to say, this is the perfect opportunity for me to see what it's like at high tide, since I hadn't actually been since we'd moved down here. And once I got there, it was so beautiful because yes, the tides were high, but the water was powerful. And I got called to shake my body, to move the energies so that the energies that were feeling stuck got to move. And then all of a sudden, as the energy started to move, I started to get new stories, new experiences that I had that will go into the chapter. And so this was a perfect example of, I was trying to force it, doing it the way that I thought it should get done, in the way that I thought it should get done. Yet what I needed to do was actually take a step back, allow the energies to work with me in a more passive state, in that ebb state. And then all of a sudden they started to flow. And it's still weaving together. It's still co-creating, but I keep getting little hits to write certain parts down, take a voice memo. And this is the same thing you get to do. And it's not like we only have one thing to do. So if we, again, go back to the ocean metaphor of the wave, the ocean doesn't have one wave. The ocean has many waves, and you watch out for which wave is the one that's ready to be surfed on, which one is the wave where the energy is moving. And so if you're applying the teaching, you're going to be on a wave that is moving. And then as it slows and ebbs, you move to the next wave that's flowing. And then you move to the next one and the next one. And what you find is you're actually carried so much faster that you get so much more done than if you are simply fighting the current, where you're actually trying to swim upstream as the wave is coming out. You're trying to paddle forward, and you can just actually get less done because you're so frustrated, and you might end up having to do 3 different copies or 3 different emails, for instance. So what I would invite you to do this week is just begin to notice how you work right now. Do you have a natural tendency to move with the ebb and flow? Do you resist? Like, are you like me? The reason the guides taught me this, and it came after I left the corporate world, but when I love to get things done, and I can work 12 hours in a row, working through lunches, working through, bio breaks in order to get something done, because I love to have that satisfaction of completion. But often that would result in me banging my head against the wall, getting so frustrated, getting hungry, getting hangry. And it doesn't do you any good. Not only are you coating whatever you're working on with this icky energy, but you're also not moving forward. And there's other things that you're missing. So as you move about your week, are you automatically moving with the ebb and flow? Do you do that out of sort of your natural ability? And begin to pay attention to the signposts. Begin to pay attention when you're feeling low energy, when you're feeling a bit contracted, when you're feeling frustrated, where nothing seems to be working. Maybe the thing you're saving didn't save, or you can't find such and such. Because remember, we are in co-creation with everyone around us. So if we're working on a project and it involves different people required to respond or to provide input, sometimes the ebb state is waiting for someone else to take action, which then frees up the energy and allows it to move. And just begin working with it. Begin practicing, going, oh, this feels really good right now. And you'll notice that time even seems to go so quickly, where you can just be working on something and you get so much done. And it's like, wow, that was so fast. And then when all of a sudden it seems like it's going so slowly, then you're in the ebb, you're in the slow space, you're in that stillness where you can reflect internally, where you can then begin to say, okay, well, what is it that I'm being guided? And then you can move to the next and the next and the next. If you have questions on this, please feel free to leave the question in the comments. Or if this made total sense, also let me know that too. And if you've enjoyed this episode of Embodied Soul, please like it, share it, turn on notifications, and subscribe to my channel. It really helps build the channel and get the energies out to those who need it. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Embodied Soul podcast.